Hello and welcome to Break the Silence, the podcast that's brought to you exclusively by Aid to the Church in Need UK. It's one of the great joys of working with Aid to the Church in Need, and part of the ministry, if you will, of Aid to the Church in Need is indeed to break that silence in terms of enabling more people to see, to hear, to understand the stories of those who do so much behind the scenes very often to support those who are persecuted, those who are suffering, those who are what we call in pastoral need. And we do this in a way that enables us to really showcase the work of Aid to the Church in Need project partners, individuals without whom none of our project work could actually come about. These are crucial linchpins in the enablement of our work to bring help and hope and to bring the gospel to so many parts of the world and to provide practical help to those who have so little. So one of these project partners is Father Padre Konteh, who is, of course, a priest of the Archdiocese of Freetown in Serra Leoa. For those of you who don't know, Freetown is very much the capital of Sierra Leone, a country in West Africa. And before putting some questions to Father Peter for him to share his story, we thought we'd just tell you a little bit about his background, because his CV is surely very, very impressive. I've already mentioned that he's an ACM project partner, and we'll come on to that in due course. But we also should share a few other things about him, namely that Father Peter is Executive Director of Caritas Freetown, overseeing Catholic-led humanitarian aid programs across the Archdiocese of Freetown. And he's been in that position for a fair while, 22 years or more, I believe. Yeah, so we look forward to hearing about that. In addition to this, he has at various times held different briefs, different responsibilities, including Vice President of Caritas Africa, Chairman and Technical Supervisor for the Healy International Relief Foundation. He has served as President of the National Catholic Priests Association in Sierra Leone, and also to do with the Priests Association, he served as Vice President of the West African Priests Association. So he knows a great deal about the situation, the context in which priests, not just in Sierra Leone, operate, but elsewhere too. He is Chief Executive Officer, CEO of a specialist children's hospital in Waterloo near Freetown. We were just mentioning this before we came on air. And this particular children's hospital is called Christ the King Hospital. And he also oversees St. Mary's Fatima Interim Care Centre, which supports, I believe, 24 vulnerable children. So support for vulnerable young people has been at the heart of a ministry as a priest that stretches back nearly 30 years. I think next year, 1996 was the date of your ordination to the priesthood. Yeah. So he's packed in an awful lot in what is, comparatively speaking, a very short time indeed. So Father Peter, welcome to Break the Silence. It's great to have you on the programme. And I have to admit, this is a small admission here, if I may, that I had been particularly looking forward to meeting Father Peter because I had heard so much about him from his nephew, who's a good friend of mine, and he is Tamba Ngeba, who is our head of finance for Aid to the Church in Need UK. And it's thanks to him, to Tamba, that I'm wearing this suit, this African, if I may call, if that's that, is that the right way to refer to it?
It's an African suit,
An African suit that Tamba made for me, or arranged to be made for me, and which I took with me when I visited Liberia, which is the country, one of the countries neighbouring Sierra Leone, and we touched down very briefly in Freetown en route to Monrovia, the capital of Liberia. So it's really wonderful to be able to wear this suit that rarely gets an outing in this cold climate here. So, Father, I'd like, if I may, to go back to the start of your ministry. I mean, as I mentioned, you're just about to come up to your 30th anniversary as a priest. But if we go back to 1996, it takes us back to the time of Sierra Leone's brutal, and it really was a brutal civil war, wasn't it?
It was.
And it went on for a whole decade, pretty much. And I understand, and this is where I wanted to start, that you've had no less than 8 what we might call near-death experiences. And I just wanted to ask if I may, you could perhaps recount one of those near-death experiences.
Certainly. It's wonderful to be here. Like the Transfiguration, it's good for us to build 3 tents and stay. And there is a saying that if Moses cannot go to the mountain, let the mountain go to Moses, or vice versa. When you went to Liberia, I was like, wow, they are so close and they are not getting here. So if you cannot go to Sierra Leone, let Sierra Leone come here. So It's a wonderful opportunity, and I always feel proud as a partner of ACN. I'm one of possibly the principal recipient and coordinator of most of ACN projects. If they are late to give a report, they will send to me and I follow up. So I feel, very delighted to be here. And my image about the solidarity that we receive is that of a phone and a charger. We are the phone, but without charging, you lose your power. So the tremendous support that we receive gives us energy to carry out our work in very difficult circumstances. And indeed, I was ordained in the climax of our war. Sometimes I ask myself, well, was I fully ordained? Because the ordination was going on and we hear shooting on the... So the Archbishop was really rushing
through it.
Yeah, through it. So sometimes I wonder, I said, maybe I need another ordination. I was not truly ordained because he was really rushing because, the gunshot. And so that brought alive the start of my ministry. Immediately after the ordination, my dad, who was the head of police, who was here in the UK and after independence was recalled to go back to head our police, has organized a big banquet for the ordination after the Mass. But unfortunately, everybody was rushing home. And I stood there very sad, and the bishop came and said, nobody has come. He said, well, take this food to the prison, to the refugee camp, and so on, and distribute. So that was my first day of my act of doing charity. Since then, I've ever been in all my ministry in giving food and support to the vulnerable. So that's how it started. Incidentally, we were 2 ordained, and the other guy rushed and took refuge in the seminary. And ever since, he remained a professor in the seminary. So that's how our pattern, our ministry was designed on our ordination day. He went to the seminary and became a big professor. And I went to the humanitarian world and continued to do what I'm doing in the work of service. And in the work of service, in the period of the war, you are caught in between crises. A few times, I was literally arrested in the pulpit for challenging the junta government that came in, for promoting democracy. And there were a few times it was really like close to death. There are many times I said, well, God, here I come. I was doing your will. But some miraculous way I've been saved several times in those close to death moments. So it was at the beginning of my ministry, and it's that kind of way that I've operated. Even in the midst of death, in the midst of fear, we still continue to promote Christ in a difficult circumstances, I stress.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. And certainly in neighbouring Liberia, which of course has had its own tragic story of violence and of extreme poverty and exploitation. I've had a taste of that, not sufficient to be able to say concretely, but certainly enough to say that the needs are so profound. And reflecting on your those terrible experiences of perhaps near death, and including that extraordinary moment of your ordination and the banquet that never quite happened. How do you think those formative experiences and those near-death experiences have shaped your ministry as a priest?
It has definitely shaped my ministry because for me, every morning I ask myself after the Eucharist, because that's our power source, God, what do you want from me today? Because when I wake up in the morning, there are a lot of people sitting down like a clinic already before Mass. And I conclude my day with that. People with every issue. You know, in Africa, the priest is not just in the pulpit. We deal with all social issues. Somebody may have a medical problem and comes to the priest. Somebody may have, so we are not only social workers, not only really, we are everything. The people look forward to us for everything, in every answer to their questions. So, and that is not only related to Catholics or Christians, even the Muslims. I run a justice, I'm also in charge of the Justice and Peace Commission in our diocese. And that has been a big source to bring peace in our community. And it's amazing to note that many Muslim communities will have conflict and they will call me in the mosque to settle those conflicts, even between two Muslim religious heads. So it is fantastic, and the level of religious tolerance that we have, that when I narrate that story in Nigeria, for example, they cannot understand that. Why do you go to a mosque? Yeah, but we live in a milieu in which we try to promote peace and unity. I remember once posting in my Facebook post a picture of one of our bishops whose mother is a Muslim. And I thought this was a good post. This is showing solidarity. And I got negative feedback, especially from my brothers in Nigeria. Oh, is that bishop okay? Why didn't he convert his mother? So I said, no, you should ask the other way. Why didn't the mother convert the son? So for me, it's depicting the environment in which we live in Sierra Leone. 40% of our priests were Muslim guys who only came to Catholic schools and got influenced or got inspired. And our priests and all their parents are Muslims. So it's an extraordinary thing that we show to the world. Many times when I've had an opportunity to address the world in the UN or other big moments, I always start with that I'm coming for a very poor country, but there's something we can offer to the world, is how Christians and Muslims live together in a very collaborative way. We have intermarriages, we have respect. Most of our offices, even in Caritas, we have Muslim guys who are working. They believe in our vision. They believe in our mission. Even though Caritas is a Christ-like. But they live in a Christ life in their commitment and passion to work. So that's our understanding and that's our background. And that's how we break through the hatred for Christianity. In my parish now, I'm also a parish priest. Next door, just 1 minute away, is a big mosque.
Right.
They are praying and we are praying. It doesn't happen in many places. You know, we know the level of persecution that we face. We know the level of oppression that is going on in the world about Christians, especially living your values and identity. There are people who are persecuted because they feel they have a different value. When people think it's fashionable to have abortion, it's fashionable to be in the LGBT space, and you say, no, I'm different, I'm standing, and you seem awkward, and you face direct or indirect persecution. So in the midst of all that, we want to take the other approach that we can be tolerant, but at the same time maintain our values and principles. There are many times people are tolerant, but they compromise their values just to accommodate others. Yeah, but we are tolerant, but in the same time maintaining our identity as Catholics.
That's really good to hear, Father, because I understand that during the Civil War, you co-founded what's called the Inter-Religious Council. And this, I understand, played a pivotal role in terms of negotiations between the government and the rebels. So you had an early experience and grounding in negotiation and in bringing peace out of a situation of discord. Perhaps, given that that must have been a seminal moment in your time, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about that work.
Yes, it was
and the impact it had.
It was a miracle that we started the Inter-Religious Council shortly before our war. There was a priest from the World Council of Religion and Peace who came to Sierra Leone and stayed with me and established this Inter-Religious Council. But it gained momentum when there was need for a voice in all that was going on. So this inter-religious council is made of Christians and Muslims, and we came together, spoke together with one voice, and it was easy to pass on messages to everyone because it was easy as we came as a collective force. We went, the government was overthrown and they were now in exile in Guinea. So we were going to the government that was overthrown, negotiate, came back, spoke to the rebels, and I was among the 5 who went to the UN to ask for UN troops in the UN to come and help us because things were really getting out of hand. So the Inter-Religious Council played a lot of role because people very much listen to religious leaders. So when we come at one voice and condemn issues or take issues that are national, people listen to us a lot. So it was a blessing and a miracle, and it was very timely that we could do that and speak as one voice.
Wow, incredible. Well, of course, there's so many different aspects of your ministry, but as mentioned earlier, working with vulnerable young people has been central to your life, your ministry, and everything you stand for. And I just wanted to pick up on one point that a year or so after you were ordained, you founded a home for children orphaned by war. And 20 years later, you helped start up a humanitarian project, especially aimed at poor children. Perhaps you could just say a little bit about those initiatives and why you've prioritized this focus on young people over the course of your 30 years as a priest.
Perhaps this is the center nerves of what I do. It's the children, working with the children and the vulnerable kids. It started in the peak of our war, and when I woke up one morning and found babies in my door, and I took them in. I was not sure what to do. I had to shout how to change their diapers and so on.
Wow.
So they were with me in a week in my room, and the social services were closed. There is nowhere you could report that, babies are found babies. Nothing was operational. So they were with me for a week, and I tried to see how I could keep them going. And then I got a call from the Archbishop, who was in Freetown, and I was in Bo. And it was difficult to travel along, you could be ambushed. It was really terrible. So he ordered me that I should come to Freetown. He wanted to see me urgently. And, it was mobile phones were not. And I said on the radio, well, it's not safe. The Archbishop said it's a matter of obedience. You have to come.
Gosh, right.
So I risked and arrived in Freetown, and the Archbishop called me in his office and said, I've received complaint from your parishioners. And I said, what is it? They said they're in Mass and they hear babies crying in your room. He said, I did not send you to the parish to create babies. So I explained to him that these were babies I found, and he said, well, for the faith of the people, rent them a room and get a lady to take care of them. And I said, I don't have resources. And he gave me a sum. And he said, go, God will provide. And since then, he was very prophetic to say, if you are genuine, God will provide for you. Because after those 2, it was less than 6 months, there were 4 others left in my door. And I called him, Archbishop, I want to see you. He said, oh, it's not safe. I said, no, I'm coming. He said, no, don't risk it. I said, no, I'm coming. I want to see you. So I arrived and I said, listen, I only wanted those 2, and word has gone round, and now I have 6. So he said, build them a house. I said, where will I get money from? He said, God will provide and give me a small amount to start. But since then, there are over 80 or 90 kids that have passed through that home. And among those 2 that we found in my first team, she's a medical doctor now.
Wow.
And which is like my sustainability plan. She comes and helps the others.
Wow.
So it's amazing. And for me, I'm the father figure for them. And most of them are in university now. And then the younger ones now are in the new home. So it's just part of me they are just part of me now that I don't think they are not my biological kids because, I'm all to them and it's joy to be with them. And it's a joyful ministry.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, switching from something of very humanitarian nature to something of a very pastoral nature, we mentioned at the start that, and you explored it earlier yourself, that you're a main project partner for ACN in Sierra Leone, particularly obviously in your Archdiocese of Freetown. And for example, only a couple of months ago, we worked with you to provide no less than 1,500 mass stipends, not to mention novenas and tridiums, for 50 priests in your diocese. Now, that's clearly a really important part of ACN's outreach and its support for the pastoral life of the Church. What would you say is the impact of those mass stipends?
Certainly, it has a lot of impact because, first of all, the economic life of the priest is quite different as in other places. The priest will barely survive. The collections could not take him for 3 days in a week. And so these extra mass stipends are very helpful. But in our diocese, we have a special scheme. With the priest, everybody signs because we experienced sudden death of priests previously because they don't have access to medical insurance or to checkups. Right. So we agree now, these mass stipends, we will divide and use it to pay for an insurance scheme. But at the same time, the priests have the obligation to celebrate those masses. So it has worked for the past 3 years effectively, and now the level of sudden death has dropped because now they could go for medical checkup, eye checkup, and everything, and the insurance is fantastic. So this is our own scheme of making use in a very positive way of the resources that we receive, and that it is ensuring that our priests are healthy. At the same time, we divide it like, you can have some for your personal needs, but with their consent, because it's mass stipend, it is important that we keep to the obligation and the intention of the donor. So they will agree, and each time I will sign that they sign up that, yes, this money you will not be receiving directly, but you have the obligation of the masses.
Right.
And everybody, just recently, we received the funding. I was still out here, and I wrote, let's give a review. Is everybody happy? Do you want us to continue? Everybody, there was 100% agreement from the bishop and the priest that this is a wonderful scheme.
Wow.
So I wrote to the insurance company, continue for this year. When I go, I will settle the bills.
Well, that's incredible. And I'm sure it's wonderful that there's not just about here and now, but sort of future-proofing, if you will,
yes,
the health of as much as possible of the priests who, as you say, a priest, and I saw this in Liberia very much, a priest is not just a minister of the word. He, of course, that's vital, but he is everything to the local community. He's stretched in ways that you couldn't imagine. Talking of pastoral things, I know ACN's been working with you on a pastoral centre in Newton, which presumably is in the diocese in Freetown. We've still got some way to go, but perhaps you could share a little bit about the vision or plan for that pastoral centre.
Yes, initially we have a pastoral centre that's very small. ACN helped us actually to renovate the initial pastoral centre, which is in the centre of town, and little space for big programs. So we have a dream that we need a pastoral centre that befits the Archdiocese of Freetown, that we host a lot of youth programs and so on. But where are we situated is in Newton. Newton is where they do a lot of the plantation of the drugs that are coming in, which is a very challenging situation that we
saw this in Liberia too.
Yes, so we think if we situate that, we could be doing trainings for those youth around that end, and that could help transform their lives. So I like projects which have double effect.
Yes.
So it's a pastoral center. We promote our catechetical and values in that center, but at the same time we engage the youths in that area. And the pastoral center will have games and things in which we bring the youths together and then try in various ways to promote our values in that circumstances. So we are taking pride that it's good to ask ACN, but we are taking pride in campaigning for local contributions. So, like the miracle of the multiplication of the loaves.
Yes.
Jesus asked, what do you have? So we have 2 fish, and it doesn't matter. The quantity is not significant. But I think if you need to ask for help, you will say, yes, I'm asking for help because we've started. So we did dinners, we did diocesan celebrations, and we raised our own little funds. And that little funds have started the foundation work of the pastoral center, which for me, it gives a sense of ownership. It's good to receive funding and nicely, but when your own commitment is there, it makes a lot of difference how you take care of that property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it also helps to realize your vision for this interfaith cooperation. And it's really wonderful how you described Freetown and the whole of Sierra Leone as being a beacon of hope, certainly in West Africa and beyond, for interfaith relations. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about that this question of religious freedom, of enabling both sides to both, as you put it, retain their own identity while also respecting the identity of the other. What do you think, from your experience, is the key thing that we need to really focus on in order to move religious freedom forward, to advance the cause of religious freedom? Are there particular ways that perhaps we can enable greater capacity in this field?
First of all, is to understand the other religion that you are living with.
Yeah.
In the seminary, we emphasize studying Islam because we need to know what they understand. We need to know the difference.
Yes.
And we need to see where we can find synergy. What are the common values that we have? Compassion, love. You understand? Because the theology is coming from 2 different poles. Yeah. In Christianity, we say God sent his son to die for man. Extreme Islam, we say fathers will send their son to die for God. Okay, where do you bridge the gap? Yeah, so we need to understand the ingredients, so to speak, that brings us together. So we capitalize on what brings us together rather than what divides us. And we could have common project when we know we all have compassion. So what we do in our Caritas, once a year, we get support from a donor in Taiwan who gives us rice, Buddhists there, and we do an interfaith distribution to the poor. We do it every December. So it includes the Buddhists, includes us Christians, it includes the Rastafarians. We see that as a common value, and so that is promoting. So when we come not only to give food, but we also use the opportunity to tell others what we are, what our beliefs are, and how we do it. And in that level, we've got a lot of followers out of that. But it's out of the compassion and belief that every religion must have this saying, what you do unto others, what you like others to do unto you. So there is that flows in every religion. And so we take those principles in those religions and promote, we call it interfaith dialogue. And do it with vivid, concrete obligation of sharing food. Everybody, all of those religions have poor. All of those religions have people who are in need. So we do it and they see us together, and it brings a lot of better image about religion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Father, we really want, as we draw to a close, to thank you most sincerely for giving us your time today to help us in our process of breaking the silence on so many fronts, a country that perhaps we in the West don't hear so much about. It's a chance for our benefactors, for our supporters, for all those interested in the cause of religious freedom, to hear about the practical pastoral ways in which you're enabling greater understanding whilst retaining the identity of the individuals and of the groups. And we really want to thank you most sincerely for all that you do to enable us at Aid to the Church in Need to discharge our function, to discharge our role, which is to be a light in a time of great darkness in many parts of the world, including here in the UK. And thank you most sincerely for everything that you're doing and have been doing for so long. Father, it's been a great pleasure.
Wonderful. I mean, what makes you different is the aspect of not only giving charity, but the aspect of praying for us.
Yeah.
For me, that's the biggest joy when I see ACN or when I think about ACN, that I still, if you're in the battlefield, you know that you have ammunition that is supporting you, you feel courageous to go. So that your prayers, the individuals who support you, not only financially, but with prayers, for me, it's what makes a tremendous difference from just being a social, charitable group, but a special charity group that pray for those of us in the suffering church. The Pauline sisters in Kenya have just published a book on my story, and I will send some to Tamba to make it available here also. It's a story, the title is Sent to Heal a Wounded Nation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, so there's a little plug. No podcast is complete without a plug for a book, I think.
Yeah.
So thank you for that plug, Father.
Yeah.
And great to be with you today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.